Welcome to Making Awesome. We have an awesome guest today, Brent. You know, I could give you guys a bit of a synopsis on Brent, but I think it's better if he does. But as always, we got to get into who's making all this possible. It's 3D Musketeers, as always. If you have an idea that you want to be made real, if you are trying to go from art to part but don't really know what to do, hey, first off, thanks, you found us. Cool. Listen in. You're going to enjoy this one. But second, if you have any further questions, reach out to us. 3dmusketeers.com, 813-803-4973, or podcast at 3dmusketeers.com. That way you can reach everybody here. So let's jump into it. Brent, tell us a little bit about yourself. And of course, we got Tad and Thomas here, as we always do. How's it going, guys? But Brent,
it's good.
Dude, talk to us.
All right. Well, I'm Brent Rosenburgh. I'm as I like to call, an interdisciplinary problem solver. But probably a term that a lot of people feel very, very, very close to. But whenever people ask, well, what do you do? I will pause, and then I will think. I'm like, do you even know what you do? And I'm like, I just can't pick.
It's not a bad thing.
Because it's always been frustrating. Like, I grew up in a family that had a very linear career path. It was very, I did this, and that's what I did, and then I retired. And probably one of the exemptions to that was my grandfather. His first name was Durwood, which is an odd but powerful name. He was everything from a Master Chief Fire Control in the Navy to one of the team members that invented the first color television, the electron gun color television, not the CBS rotating disc type. And he worked for Motorola in the 40s, compacting new transistor technology into portable radios to make actually portable radios. He was a military illustrator and technical draft for the military, making all sorts of documentation for using weapons of war and repairing them on in the field. And my father, who is more of an artist, but he's also a military artist and a cartoonist and a published author. My aunt is a robotics engineer and telecommunications, master. She's currently doing all sorts of stuff for Parallax and writing manuals and just she's incredibly capable. So there was a lot of like impressions, and when I was young, I was never taught anything. Like with all this in the background, like nobody ever sat me down and was like, let me show you a little bit about my interests. It was always me looking at people going, whoa. And I remember the wise words of my grandfather, if you can learn how to learn, there's nothing you'll never know. and at the time, that was a Seussian riddle, but that struck hard with me because learning how to essentially break...
Too many learns in there.
Too many learns. Oh, my goodness. And there's a soliloquy, too. But knowing how to break a problem down into its constituent parts and then understand that was probably most of my childhood, because the overarch of of these points that I'm actually hoping to make in this talking about myself also highlights another thing where I don't do things for myself. I don't just get off on the gratification of myself. It's always for somebody or to teach somebody or so. So yep. I'm always trying to weave poignance and significance into things, because I believe if it's for my own gratification, then what's the point? which might be unhealthy, but but at the same time, I get to hear myself talk all the time.
Oh, that's why we did the podcast. I mean, come
Yeah,
on.
exactly. I was like, a podcast, you say?
Go on.
I only have to talk once, and it's heard hundreds, if not thousands, of times.
Whoa, all right, you're giving us a lot of credit here. As of the recording of this,
Oh,
we
I'm
have
sorry.
less than
Tens
600
of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of times.
tens of views, multiple tens of
Tens of
views.
many.
In billions.
All of my friend is here.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. That's a little closer.
But yeah, I was never taught anything. So early on, if I wanted to accomplish things, I felt like I had to figure it out. Then I hurt myself a lot. And that's what I found out. The second point, after learning how to learn, is not know what you don't know, because you don't know what you don't know until you know don't know it. What you need to do is actually know that you don't know. So you need to be able to approach something with enough trepidation and examination to be able to go like, ooh. And that's when you start from your vantage point, taking apart what you're looking at. So those 2 points right there probably buttress they bookend the whole story of my life, where if I can learn how to learn, but know that I don't know something, then that's going to be what carries me through everything that I've done up to this point.
And that's incredibly valuable, right? Knowing that you don't know something is one of the most valuable skills that people can have, because the answer of I don't know, let me ask someone is way better than someone taking a pot shot. And every now and then those pot shots hit targets, but if I'm not going to go firing off into a dark room and hope that I'm hitting what I'm aiming at, unless I know what's in there.
It can take a lot of effort to kind of figure out something yourself when you don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel. And so knowing where to draw that line is very important as well.
Yeah, and I found it interesting, out of all the industries you chose the 3D printing industry, and to be one that you're going to sink into for a little bit, because you've been hanging out in this industry for a minute or two.
I started in it in 2011, and at the time I was working for a dentist, a dental educator specifically, and I created the PowerPoint presentation and the textbook pages for his lectures. Now, these aren't just like, here's how to this and that. They're like literally people who have master's degrees in multiple disciplines of dentistry and medicine go to these classes to learn new things. So they're very high level stuff. They're 3-day classes, and on the second day you get a catered dinner on a yacht. So it's that kind of adventure.
One day.
One day. So
Yacht
a lot
dinner.
We'll all take a spin on the 3DM yacht.
It's going to be a
has.
big benchy.
It's going to be a benchy.
Yeah. A steamboat benchy.
What a missed opportunity from CT3D as well, because that's their model. They don't do a damn thing. That is probably one of the best marketing things that's ever happened in this industry that has gone literally nowhere. The benchy.
Oh, yeah.
Who the hell knows what CT3D.xyz is? I don't even know if their site's even active. They're the ones that own the benchy. It's literally on the bottom of the benchy.
Well, think about in Blender, Suzanne the monkey. That's like what Suzanne the monkey is to young computer animators what the Utah teapot is to old computer animators. If you're not familiar with the Utah teapot.
I'm sure I've seen it.
No.
Oh, I guarantee you've seen it. But in any event, working for this dentist, I'm a veteran of over 200,000 PowerPoint slides and over 80,000 textbook pages, and it's a wonder I haven't abused drugs and alcohol.
We wouldn't blame you if you did.
Yeah, that sounds like hell.
Publication design is a is a very it'll get you to abuse substances.
Oh yeah,
if you're there long enough.
And you don't have a
because we had
PhD.
we had 12 manuals, all of which are multi-thousand pages. But what he wanted was this is another thing, and actually this is a useful piece of information outside of this, is that I got that job. And I have notes about everything I want to cover in a bit of time, so it's a good kind of serpentine through the plot line, because getting to this job is actually one of my plot lines.
He made notes. You're like the first guest we've had that's ever had notes.
My note, just notes in that it allows me to just kind of go, oh yeah, that's not happening. Nope, that's not happening. It's more of a sheet of potential disappointments, you know.
My entire life. Hi, Dad.
Wop wop. First when I was 15 years old, I got sick and tired of high school, and it was sick and tired of me. So I actually left and got my GED that summer, because here in Washington State, kind of rural Washington State especially, high schools, especially in the year 2000, so I didn't like getting a contact high just going to the bathroom. I left that, and my first job was actually for the federal government. I was a GS3 civil servant for Fort Lewis here, which is now Joint Base Lewis McChord. And what I did there was, I was going to be an office clerk, but I went into the wrong building, and I saw an old man sitting here fiddling with a pile of wires, and I was like, is this Cadet Command? And he's like, no, this is a session photos. And I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, is that a Kodak DSC 250? And he's like, you know what this is? And I'm like, yeah, I do. And he's like, who are you signing? I need you here. so it was this old staff sergeant, Sergeant Tibbetts. Basically what had happened was, every cadet that came through what's called advanced camp, which is basically what turns cadets into officers, second lieutenants, they go from being under sergeants to over every single enlisted person in the military in one fell swoop. They go through advanced camp, which is this complicated regimental training event that takes place during the summer. They hired a bunch of, clerks and people to handle paperwork and stuff, and one of the aspects of it was called a session photos, which is where every cadet comes in from their university. They get their picture taken, and one photograph goes with them to go into their personal file, and the other stays with the government, and it goes into their cold file, basically. Mm-hmm. On that photograph, there needs to be their name, their social security number, and the university of where they came from. So ever since they began advanced camp all the way up until 1999, what they did was they had 35 millimeter cameras, and there was about 4,700 cadets. So they needed to take 2 pictures with the camera, because they didn't know that they could just ask the developers for duplicates. And then they would
military.
shoot all these things for half the summer. It would take everybody to take these pictures. Then they would take these rolls of film over to the PX, the which is like the Walmart on base, and then they would say, we need these before the end of the summer. And then they would get they get 10,000 photos developed by the PX in this mad scramble. And then they have to come back. And then for the rest of the summer, clerks with a loop would look at the name tag on the uniform.
Oh my gosh.
And a roster and go, That's Zindwalski, right? That's Michael Zindwalski.
No.
Okay, here's his number. Then they would go to a typewriter,
manually,
which had Avery labels loaded into it, and type 2 copies of that. And then they would stick that on the back of the photos. And then hopefully that happened before the cadets left, because they had to take a photo with them. And then,
thinking about this.
Then they dole them out. Yeah, exactly. So in the year 1999, one of the colonels was like, "This sucks.
There's got to be a better way.
Let's go digital." So they were like, "How?" And he's like, "I don't care. It's the next guy's problem." So off he goes. Next summer, new colonel. But they had already put in the order request for the equipment. So they bought 2 digital cameras. They bought 2 computers that were reasonable enough to run photo software. They bought 2 color laser printers.
Ooh.
But, which were very early models, by the way. But they ordered like 100,000 sheets of 4x6 inkjet photo paper.
Awesome.
So,
Good job.
they destroyed those printers in the test run because the coating on the inkjet photo paper melted off in the fuser and destroyed the machines. And these were the original color lasers had a carousel inside, and they would rotate each toner cartridge and imaging drum again and again and again and again, transferring it to the paper. So once something sticky shows up in the train, it will distribute that stickiness to every single imaging drum. So it's not a matter of replacing the fuser, it's a matter of replacing every single toner cartridge in the whole transfer case and the fuser, and on a machine that when it came out was $8,900.
I was about to say, what does that cost, right? Because like right now, if your printer gets sticky on it, you just go get another printer because they are so cheap. You can actually go
full set of ink is about the cost of a printer.
That's exactly where I was going. Unless you buy generic, and it's like terrible amounts of waste.
Although Epson is shaking up the world with their Eco Tank. Make sure to go to your local Best Buy to check out the Epson.
We're not sponsored by them.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
The only sponsor we want is Joseph Prusa. And anyone willing to give us more money than Prusa.
Which so far is none.
We'll see about that.
Which so far is 3D Musketeers, sir.
Okay.
No. I'm talking about Prusa.
Oh, yes. Yeah, Prusa's giving us nothing.
Which, right now, 0.
Please. If anything, we're sponsoring Prusa.
Notice me, Senpai.
Yes, no. Witness me.
Witness me.
That's basically me on shop.prusa3d.com. Just, I need one bed. Witness me, we're getting 6.
Tell my story.
I named my first child Joseph.
That's my middle name. It's Joseph. It's like it was just there from the beginning.
Yeah. I'm making everyone say Joseph. This will get to the dentist, I swear. And that's one of 4 parts, you know. Anyway, I go there, and this is an important story because it shows like the things that I did early on to develop a reputation. Because I'll tell you, reputations are hard to get and easy to lose. And that was true. And that is how I wound up with the kinds of jobs that I had, and the kind of work was maintaining and carrying a reputation around.
And I love that your start to all this was because you literally took the door less taken. Yeah. Because that was the door you weren't supposed to take.
Exactly.
So there's a good lesson there, right? If you see a door that says don't enter, don't do that. But definitely go the road less traveled because you'll never know who you meet and why. I mean, that's awesome. Well,
what was... At that point, I had been interested... I've always been an illustrator. I've always drawn cartoons, and I've always liked to do stuff like that. I watch cartoons more than anything, even to this day, because modern media kind of sucks anyway. Amen. So if I'm going to immerse myself in an alternate reality, let's go crazy with it. But I wound up getting transferred over to Accession Photos, and they said, "Can you make this work? We have 2 weeks before the cadets start coming in.
Of course.
What can you do with it?" And I'm like, "Oh." I'm like, "Well, first of all, this is the wrong paper for these printers." And he's like, "Yeah, we figured that out. So we bought new paper." They bought more inkjet photo paper, though.
Wow.
So what happened was so instead of buying, because their first order was for 10,000 sheets of coated premium photo paper, which is actually kind of glazed in a hydrophilic surface that will capture the ink and then protect it from ultraviolet light, so it's nice and vibrant and bold. So then they ordered another 10,000 sheets of it's a kind of photo paper. They usually call it advanced photo paper, and it's a photo paper that contains a chemical that reacts to the ink and rapidly dries it. So it tends to be a little duller, but any ink will work on it. And it's a lot more tolerant. You could print a lot faster. It's fine.
But still meant for ink.
But it's still meant for ink because it's so dry.
You've got a cat kitty going on in the background.
Yeah, she likes to do that.
Jumped up on, she jumped onto the RGB piano. Are we going to get random piano? That would have been hilarious.
No, I have that turned off right now. But for this, everything is on mute right now. The only thing that's running is this Ethereum mining application, because if I'm not using my computer, it better do some work for me.
Hell yeah.
Got a GPU? May as well use it.
But it's not
$2
Dogecoin?
a day, boy.
I thought we're going to the moon with Dogecoin.
Nah, I guess. So I wound up saying, this is the wrong paper, because this kind of paper doesn't get sticky. It catches on fire. So they had already, up to this point, spent about a third of their budget on paper they can't use.
Oh, yeah. They'll just get more
tracks.
The government prints it. I mean...
So what wound up happening was this paper, at least, had a high enough flash point that if you print on the backside, which had no watermark, you could actually use it in a laser printer. Because in the fuser, there was a heat roller and then there was a compression roller. It didn't heat both sides like most fusers do now. I figured, well, so long as the heat side isn't making contact with the thing, we can use that paper. So we wound up using that paper because it was pretty much just rough paper on the other side. So that was thing number one. But the thing number two was, like, how are we going to keep track of all these things? So a neighbor of mine worked for Corel. If he watches this, hi, Tim. And as a kid... I was about 13 or so. He gave me a copy of Corel Draw 6. And I'm currently using Corel Draw 26 to do a lot of vector stuff because it's pretty good.
Light burns
not for printing and press, though. I prefer Illustrator for that.
Yeah. Thomas has taught me that.
Sorry, Thomas. I do use Illustrator when I'm making things pretty.
But that's what you're supposed to use, no?
Illustrator's for print and press. Its DNA is built around spot colors and creating basically the postscript compatible vector graphics. Corel, on the other hand, came from a world of plotters. It was originally for XY coordinate work, so it's designed around creating things for plotters and cutters, and it can do pretty graphics.
Yeah.
But it's great for lasers, and for that very reason is it actually creates very clean line work when you export. So I had poked around a lot with Corel at that point, so I was thinking about, like, what can I do, and I got an idea. So I was learning a little bit of Visual Basic, because you can actually extend Corel using Visual Basic scripts. And what I did was I made a plugin for Corel Draw that has text fields in it. And what you do is when the cadet walks up, I had, with a serial connection, connected this camera to the computer, and then the Corel software, the Kodak software for this old-ass camera that used a compact flash card actually had a feature where when the camera takes a picture, it will auto-download into a specific folder. So I mapped the folder in Windows Explorer as this is the incoming. And what I did was I designed like this two computer core, because you used to only have one camera. They bought two, so there's like basically two lines. You walk up, you sit down, or you stand on the mark in front of the drape, and you look at the camera, and then when you do yeah, exactly.
I happen to have an old ass camera that still runs on compact flash. That is
me too. I have a Nikon D100 over here.
Sony Alpha 100, but it is hilarious to me that is 4 gigabytes of compact flash. A compact flash card's roughly 1.7 by 1.45 inches. This, I have an SD card that's actually an adapter for a micro SD card, and the micro SD card's 128 gigabytes.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I have a 256 gig micro SD, and the cards we used were 32 megabyte compact.
Oh yeah, I've got some megabyte cards.
That's like whoa.
But that camera
man.
It probably took damn good photos though, because those sensors used to be so good back then.
It was that Kodak used Sony's CCD sensor. It was before Kodak started making their own CMOS chips, and they did that only for a little bit of time before they. So ultimately, regardless of that, got to get to the dentist at some point.
It worked.
I made a setup where a cadet walks in, gets her picture taken, then walks up to the person who just took the picture at the computer, says their name, says their social security number, and says their university. And what the script does is it runs a routine of operations in Corel that will crop the photo, add a border, put a box at the bottom, superimpose the text, the university, and the thing, and print 2 copies right there on the laser. And then they walk out of the place with the 2 finished photos. And I won a award from Cadet Command for excellence in civil service because I saved the government about $90,000
in only 2 weeks.
In just 2 weeks,
and then they went to go on and spend that on inkjet paper.
Pretty much. I muted you,
but still, that's damn good work.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and I was like 16 years old at the time, so I was like, so, but yeah, I got a Cadet Command Award for excellence in civil service, and it was one of those strange feelings because, like, I was making $17 an hour, in 2000, which is well above minimum wage.
I was about to say that's pretty good.
That's pretty good now. I mean, it was a GS3, and I never, aside from when I was working for myself, I've never held a job that paid less than that. Because following that, I did it for the following summer, in which I also made this whole manual for everybody who came afterward that had how to set I 3D modeled. I had at that point learned 3D Studio Max. And
Max, don't you, Thomas?
Yep.
I've used 3D Studio Max for 21 years, and I have totally dropped it from
3D
Blender.
Studio Max.
Yeah. Well, I used Max, Maya, and ZBrush primarily for.
So you're a masochist, got it.
I started in Cinema 4D.
That's fair.
Yeah. So there you go. I mean, Cinema Maxon makes good stuff.
I like Maxon stuff.
Yeah, because it's more artist oriented. It actually feels like an artist can actually use the software.
Everybody should sponsor us.
Max is for people that measure their feces with calipers. But
Thomas doesn't know whether to laugh or to be pissed off.
Yeah, it
So
comes
no,
with no
no.
explanation.
Well, why would I be
That's
pissed
for
off?
you.
He's making fun of people that use Macs. It's like, yeah, like I don't.
That
Look, the thing
stings on
is, like,
so many
I'm way
levels.
less. Like, I mean, see, Grant, you'd be closer to measuring your feces with calipers than I would be because
That's fair.
I just get to make stuff that looks pretty.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how many inches it is because
make it-
I just have to render it.
Here's the deal, Thomas. You model the feces, I'll model the calipers. We'll
Okay,
split it
yeah.
up that way.
We could
That's
do
how-
that.
that's how-
Yeah, I could just do a feces sculpt. Yeah, it'll
Yeah.
be really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I got this excellent brush pack that has corn and it has.
You can do a little like we could do like a little generation to like have a nice random spread of
Oh,
different
yeah.
particles in the
God.
feces, and we could do some soft body dynamics and
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
we'd start running some weird, like
Physics simulations of it landing
Yeah,
on
and
the
like
floor.
but like really get it. This is and will be our legacy. Because when Pixar comes knocking at the door and they say, "Hey
As
guys,"
they inevitably will.
they're going to be like, "We have a new film, and we heard you were working on some shit simulations."
It's the
And,
poop emoji
you're-
film.
And no, and they're like,
Oh no.
"What we want to make is we want to make a movie about poop, but all of the different poop also symbolizes people's emotions. So we really need some really."
I thought they already made
realistic-
that movie.
What was it
They
called?
didn't. You think Inside Out is
I'm
about
making a
shit,
joke.
Tad?
No.
You just
talking
are
about the Emoji
insulting
movie.
all of these. Oh well, did Pixar make the Emoji movie?
No.
No, that was Sony.
That was
Yeah.
someone-
See,
yeah.
I didn't think so. I was like, I didn't think Pixar was capable of the horror. Like even The Good Dinosaur was better than that. Like, yeah. So yeah,
Tell us how
basically,
you really feel.
That is how I feel.
Scatological tangents aside,
Yes. Quite.
the I did it for one other extra summer, and then I decided to go to school, but I couldn't afford anything. My grandma's like, "I got 10 grand for you. Just make a living," and I'm like, "What will 10 grand do?" I ask and wonder. So I look north to the technical college. And I'm like, well, if I have an associate's, at least then people will, respect that, maybe. So I went in for 3D arts and animation because I made this manual where I 3D modeled the entire room and all the equipment that was in it, and how to set it up. And do I even still have it? I'll
If he can find it and wants to post it, we'll have links in the description down below.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Well, it's a federal document now. It's actually under a classification because setting up a building is on a military base is actually considered.
Okay, so
Even though it's the
so
photo
no
room.
links down below.
even
Don't
though
look
it's the
for it.
photo room. But what I might do is I'll take specific snapshots of
There you go.
Let's
certain
not
graphics.
get in trouble with the U.S. government.
It's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
If they come knocking
It'll
at
be
my door, I'm gonna
fine,
tell them
it'll be
it
fine.
was Brent. This is where he lives because I'll figure it out.
Oh yeah, no,
You're on the
I
wrong
will get
side of
thrown
the
under the bus for
country.
this.
You're in Florida. You need to be. It's a little colder where you need to be.
So I went to Clover Park Technical College here in Lakewood, Washington, and for 3D arts and animation, and I learned nothing. And it's
That you
not
didn't
against
already know.
them. It's just that I was so motivated to know things that I just started learning on my own. And then when I came in there, they were looking for folks who had no experience. All right, so it's Photoshop. Now, here's the interesting thing about Photoshop. It's an image manipulation software. And by that, I mean, it's just like, uh-oh.
Were you able to
So-
test out of stuff or what?
Well, that's the thing. They've never had to do that. So they didn't have contingencies for that. So I was like, make contingencies, because I can't afford 2 years of this. I could only afford 3 terms. That was it. Because unless I had some extra money from somewhere else, my parents couldn't. We were not that well to do. So they said, well, Mr. Big Shot, because here I am, a 19-year-old saying, I know everything, just give me out.
The things that a lot of 19-year-olds say without
Oh
any
yeah, absolutely.
confidence
That's
whatsoever.
a common staple of being 19 years old and being self-motivated. I've already realized how the world works. You don't understand. So I wound up taking the final exams in my first week, and I actually did them. I aced them. They moved me up to the next levels for the second year, and they gave me the credits for it. Then I started taking the advanced classes, and same thing. It's just like, what am I supposed to know to get associates out of this? And it's like, well, all these things, and I'm like, and they're like, you can't test out of these things. Sorry. I'm like, okay, fine. So I was working on them. I got all through all of the finals for the second year, did all of that stuff, and then 3 weeks before the end of the last 3D arts and animation, we were doing UV mapping and weight painting, which is the bane of modelers and animators, especially in the year 2003 when the software was not nearly as friendly as it is now.
And it's barely
you're doing
friendly
vertice
now.
by vertice weight painting.
That sounds so icky. I already don't like weight painting. And I also don't like UVs either. If I can just get everything out of a box, then I'd rather do that.
Hey, there's
That's
a lot of Blender add-ons that do very, very smart, fast unwrapping. So you know, I tend to use those now anyway because I'm.
And can you?
Ain't nobody got time for that.
See, I'm gonna do Thomas's job real quick. What's Blender, and why should I care?
What is Blender?
Yeah, and why should I care?
Oh, it's a 3D, like, I guess it's just like, what, 3D art and animation
it's for
software?
our listeners and watchers. I know what Blender is, but maybe they
don't.
don't.
I know. Grant, I don't think you have to explain your point here.
I think maybe the better question would be...
It sounded like you were trying to explain it to me as
Blender is a
this.
free open source 3D computer animation software solution created by collaborators all around the world and funded by hundreds of thousands of passionate creators and developers.
It's good.
Because
it's the rising star in the 3D animation world.
Better question maybe would be then, what is UV mapping?
That's
know
true.
it, I know it, we all know it, but what do
I actually don't know what it means. I know what it does, but I don't know what it means.
Do you want to? You are down here relative to me in the view.
Am I? Wait, where am I?
Wait, let me see. Me? No, I am diagonal.
It's going to be all different for all of us. Just
yeah,
I don't know.
That's true.
You're.
Oh yeah,
No,
you're actually below me and my.
Of a lovely lady.
Oh shit! This is complicated. You're down there for me.
Basically,
all right.
In the simplest of terms for anyone watching, it's basically just saying, this flat image is now on my 3D object to make it look like not just a smooth thing.
And this actually used heavily in the video game industry. If you look at video game models, they're way low polygon, which means there's not smooth surfaces. They're everything in digital is made up of triangles. Just there's no such thing as a round curve. It's not a thing. They're triangles. There's just a lot of them.
But they fake it. They make it look like it's smooth.
And with a really good texture map, which ends up unwrapping to be a JPEG photo most of the time, with a good texture map, you can trick people. And this enables game developers to do relatively decent 3D in, megabytes worth of storage versus like Call of Duty Black Ops, which is 100 gigabytes worth of storage, at least.
It's ridiculous.
I'm assuming it's because they're using high poly models, but I don't know
Since
for sure.
the mid-90s, that has been what has pushed computer graphics, is how can we make a texture look like geometry?
Yeah.
There was bump mappings first in like Doom and Quake, and not in Doom, but in Quake. And then they came up with normal mapping, and then they came up with displacement mapping, and now there's
now we have them all together.
Tessellation
Everything
displacements
mashed into one. And so now when you open a texture file to texture an object, you have like 8 different versions of that texture that have all been processed to do all your different things.
A video on that Half-Life Alyx game, and they were this whole thing about like the wine bottle.
Yeah.
How there's a shader on it that makes it look like there's liquid, but there's not actually anything in it. It's just a
Nope.
solid
Yep.
bottle. It's crazy.
Well, and again, like the things that we take for granted today in terms of computational power were pushed by trying to make pointless effects be dazzling. You know, that's the thing, is like we can render amazing things on our computers because the GPU is a supercomputer, because people just needed viscous blood spray.
Because
that's what pushed the industry that far. And now we can compute. We could do advanced computational, processing on 6,000 CUDA cores.
We could if all the dirty crypto miners would allow us to get video cards.
They bought them all
Give
up.
me my 3090s. I need my 3090s.
I'll even take a 3080, but I want a 5900X right now.
Actually, technically, I'd love another 2070 Super of an EVGA type, so I can NV-link it to the one I have, so I can so I can at least have 16 gigs of video memory, because that's really, I just keep running out of video memory.
It's the RAM. It's the RAM that is always the bottleneck.
It's always the bottleneck.
Went from the 770 to the 1080. Went from 1080 Ti, so 4 gigs to 11.
Yeah,
that was a jump. Although the 4770K is still the bottleneck, but
yeah,
it is.
So, where were we with the story?
Didn't mean it 4770K.
You got your associates.
I love mine.
Although 3 weeks before.
It's onboard audio is dead. And it hurts. Yes, you got your associate. You went to get your associates.
Yes.
So I went to go get my associates, and
did you succeed?
No, because in the last class I needed to take, that was part of the program, and that's the important part. The teacher had paternity leave. His wife was having a baby, and nobody in the sub pool knew how to do what his class required. So he says, "Have you ever taught?" And I'm like, "No." So for the last 3 weeks of the class, I made $26 an hour substitute teaching 3D arts and animation.
For the class that
get up out of my teacher's chair or student chair, go up to the front, sit down on the teacher's chair. Okay, we're gonna go to page 374, and I taught that right at the end, which actually was nice, because I had never made that much in my life at that point. But it turns out core classes like math and psychology and things like that, since they are transferable to other institutions, they cannot be conjured from nothing. And even though those classes are intended to retrofit you with the knowledge necessary to do the rest of the curriculum, that's why you need to do them, is so you have the requisite knowledge to succeed in the other classes. I didn't do them at all. And even though I succeeded, that's not the point. So I didn't have enough credits, and I couldn't get my associates. However, in the process, I made friends with 5 faculty members who were all who are all retired from big industry stuff. People who ran TV stations, people who did, who were, lead grips on movie sets, and all sorts of other people in the industry. I made friends with them, and they knew people, and those people knew people. And all of a sudden, one person says, "Hey, I have a friend who has a company that does technical things, and you're very talented, and I recommended you to them." Now, that technical thing wound up being a network operations technician, which... a knock tech, which was not my forte, but I was aware of things. I was almost to the level where if I just did some Cisco training, I probably would have been good at it. But I mean, luckily we weren't dealing with token rings here. Gigabit was coming out, and things were doing okay. But so I didn't get an associate's. However, I did work for this company here in Tacoma called Optic Fusion, and they were the fiber optic terminus of the West Coast internet backbone, the electric lightwave link. So it was basically where the internet plugged in to the Pacific Northwest. And they had a lot of servers there because that's right where the bandwidth is. I was the nighttime knock tech. Sit there with a fire extinguisher, waiting for a lot of money to disappear. And it was fine, but the guy I worked for, a gentleman named John Coyce Jr., he saw that I had more talents in graphic arts than in network operations, and I agreed with him. His father, however, was Dr. John Coyce Sr., who is a world-renowned dentist. Here's where we get to the dentist.
I see.
So
bringing it around town.
So I quit, but it was more like I got traded, like a football player. I got traded to the Coyce Center. Now, here's the thing. This is another one of those life lessons I would like to communicate to you. Don't let knowing what you don't know, or knowing that you don't know something, turn you into a meek and vulnerable person, because you will get taken advantage of.
Amen.
If you walk up into a situation like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm here. I'm so humbled to even be here. I will do anything.
That's what it feels like to get a job.
That's when you can get into
days,
trouble, right?
That's when you get into trouble. My kind of trouble wound up being, the first couple years was like white knuckle thrills of me going, I can't believe I said yes to this. Because there was a lot of like, can you do this? And I do a quick look at it and I'm like, theoretically, yes. And it turned into, then make it happen. Because this is an expensive venue. The owner has a yacht. This is a big place. There's a lot on the line. You have to perform. There's no failure there.
That's a lot of pressure.
But they know that. And they also know that when you come into a situation like that, the first bit of time you spend there, unless you're going to be there for decades and decades, you build this repertoire and you have a strong enough personality that they understand, who you are, you might find yourself in a situation where you will always be the new guy. And if you're always the new guy, no matter what you achieve, no matter what you accomplish, you're still the new guy because of your behavior. Now, I'm not talking you need to be all balls to the all cock hard, rock hard, and just be like, yeah, look at me. But what you should do is have confidence in what you do know, knowing in the background that there's plenty that you don't. And that's okay. It's okay to not know.
It is okay to not know. That is correct.
It's okay to not know.
But challenge
it's not shameful
the
to ask. Hell, like as an illustrator, I'll trace something just so I can understand its form, and then I'll go back with the knowledge of its form and make something fresh. But it's not like, oh no, you're. It's just like, really, it's okay. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So. First couple years of that, when I went in there, he had what amounted to 2 projectors that were running from 2 computers, the same PowerPoint, but there was a left side and a right side. So he had 2 remote controls that operated 2 computers that he'd have to hit in synchronicity. And that would advance the text and that would advance the pictures, because he got used to presenting with a wide format. Because his stuff is so dense that you needed visual information and text information simultaneously, but since dental imagery is very specific, he wanted the pictures as big as possible. So you take advantage of a wide format to do that. Back maybe only 10 years before I came there, that was 35 millimeter slide carousels. So he's the guy with like 12 carousels, and do not spill, because you'll spend your next week reorganizing your lecture in this carousel. So he was happy to be on PowerPoint, but it was also lacking. So then I started showing him what you can do with technology. That's the other thing, is that unless they ask for it, don't.
Because then you've opened the door.
Don't volunteer yourself.
Don't volunteer. Like
as soon as your family finds out you know IT, it's over.
Yeah.
You have become the geek squad for your family.
Yep.
And you don't want to do
that. That bridge That bridge has been crossed already.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, there are plenty of opportunities to impress people, and you'll find plenty of opportunities in the scope of what you do. But when you start introducing new technologies because you feel that it's going to make it a league and above, you are signing yourself up for immense work you may not have had to do to still get the same paycheck.
Yes.
Now, again, I'm not saying don't go above and beyond, especially if you feel like there's an actual real strategic value to pushing it this way. Like if the rest of the industry is going there and you know that, you can go there and take them with you. But if you're the leader of the pack, and there's a lot of distance behind you, don't waste your energy going that much further ahead. Save that for when everyone's caught up to you.
Exactly.
And at the time, nobody had caught up to him, but he always liked being the best. So what wound up happening was, we could just unify your whole thing. We'll get a high definition projector, and then in PowerPoint, I could just make a 3:1 aspect ratio slide format. And he's like, okay. So I did. So I wound up having to take his entire lecture history and translate it into an entire thing. It took 1.5 years, and I did the whole thing. Didn't have to, but it wound up being better. But that was a lot of work for me.
Oh, yeah.
It wound up really exhausting me. And then the new PowerPoint had come out, PowerPoint 2007, which brought with it the PPTX format, which is actually a whole interesting thing. When Office went to the X format, did you know any of the Office documents that end in an X, like DocX and PPTX, if you change it to zip, it's a zip file you can open, and all the pictures are in there in a human readable structure, because they went to XML for everything. So it's actually, so all of these things are actually formatted in a parsable format. So that file can also be ingested by other software easily. It's all just laid out in reasonable things. So that was cool.
The two people that listen that really dig into that kind of thing,
that really love Office.
Well, I don't know, that's interesting to me, because I make so many PowerPoints in my day job that's good to know.
I'll tell you, one of the big things for me is I had to recreate so many PowerPoint presentations, and when you have a presentation and you export an image like a copy and a paste, it gets resampled. So you can get generational degradation of content going from PowerPoint to PowerPoint.
I've noticed that. Noticed that.
It does that.
Yeah.
And it tends to do a weird blur/sharpen to it to try to give it this fun alias edge. But to fix that, you actually open up the file as a zip, and there's a folder called media, and in there are all the originals. So that's how you harvest. That's how you do the forensic harvest.
I just always thought that was just a cost of doing business with Microsoft.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, look, that's the other thing, right? I wish I was more technical, but I'm just not. I guess I'm technical to what most people consider technical. But when you talk to someone who's...
How many times do we talk about people thinking that you're an engineer just from meeting you?
This is true.
So here's the thing.
Oh, give yourself some credit.
You fit snugly into the category of what's known as a power user.
Yeah.
For every now and then, because sometimes, I don't know what I'm doing. F it. I'm going to go do something else.
Sounds like a power user to me.
Like this Raspberry Pi still is dark magic. I do not understand how it works. Raspbian, and it's... Nope. Every single time I have to SSH into that freaking Pi where I'm logging into it over the internet, I still have to ask the team, how do I do this again? Because I feel like an idiot. But it worked. We just did a 1,500 picture time lapse, and it did function. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's all in the Google Drive. All 6 gigabytes of photos.
I'm going to crank up the pace on the story to make sure that everything gets covered, because I'm getting a little rambly myself about PowerPoint, which is
bring us into like
I think more of a disability than anything.
Bring us into the maker aspect. How did you get?
Yes.
How did you get into this industry?
So that's the end of the dentist story. Starts the maker story.
Right.
Basically, anyway, for 7.5 years, push. At the end, I was making like $36 an hour with a 401k, with full medical, free dental, profit sharing.
Hoped you got free
as many
I was going to say free dental.
As many yacht cruises as I wanted, but I also had no life whatsoever. I was so like drowning in work. And what's difficult about that is the precedent that I set early about me being somebody who always has to prove himself. That was actually an effect, a psychological effect of self-confidence. I wound up, since I was ever a kid, I always felt like I had no right knowing what I knew. I didn't possess any degrees. On paper, I was unimpressive. And I had to feel like I always had to prove myself to be worth even the paycheck that I received. So I would always be pushing that bar higher and then straining to grab it. And even though I managed to grab it most of the time, it was killing me.
It sounds exhausting.
It was there that I found out that I actually had ADD, because I would sit down in my office and I would stare at my computer and I would be like, okay, time to do this thing that I've done so often I can write a book on it. And nothing came to me. My brain decided, well, I don't think you should be doing this, so I'm going to take all of my efficiency away, and I'm going to start giving you sad chemicals now, because in nature, that's what your brain does. If it's not paramount to your survival, you shouldn't be spending resources on it. So ADD is very complicated. This is a platitude, and it affects everybody differently in unique ways. But the core of it is that you are not getting the chemical rewards for accomplishing things you need to do. So instead, you feel anxious, you feel depressed, you feel unproductive, your creativity disappears, and you feel as if you shouldn't be doing what you know you need to do logically. Mm-hmm. And when you're young and you have far less responsibilities, you pivot. Oop, I hit my microphone.
Oh,
you pivot.
That was loud.
And that
sorry, folks.
Yeah. We'll just dip that in the recording.
You think we do that kind of editing around here?
Still trying to get Grant to do it.
I don't know how.
Or let me do it.
Either you could do it, I could do it. I got Premiere and
we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
So
jeez.
ADD would make me sad if I wasn't, even when I'm doing things I know I'm good at and I know I enjoy, even made me sad. So I went on to a stimulant. I think it was the amphetamine salts. Is that Ritalin or Adderall?
Adderall.
I think it's Adderall.
Yeah.
So I was on that, and it kind of helped. I mean, it helps. I mean, it certainly helps, but it causes other issues. But I won't get into that. But the thing, because it's not that I needed it to. That's the other thing, is that if you have to medicate yourself, don't feel like you need it to succeed. It's just you need it to succeed on the timetable that life requires it. Mm-hmm. If you need access to your creativity when others say so, that helps you in that effect. But it doesn't control the access to your talent. You know, that's probably a big thing, because anytime you feel as if you're giving away your agency in life to something else, it makes you more and more a victim of something, when you always have the control within you. But it can get debilitating, and that's something that never feel like you can't ask for help. therapists and neurologists and all these people there to help. And I've spoken to quite a few. It's very important to get that thing under control and know what solutions help you.
Yes, it is.
But don't let it define how you value yourself, because it's just chemicals. Our life is full of weird chemicals we have to ingest. So just figure out what you need to succeed, and then just do it. So come to the end of 2012, I had just met my first girlfriend, which would wind up being my first wife, which is still my current wife.
First and so far only wife.
Thank
so
you
far
for,
only,
for,
and I'm shooting for only.
It gets expensive when you decide it's not the right one at that point.
Yeah, I know. But no, it's wonderful. Best thing in my life. But I think the cat pooped on something.
Uh-oh.
Okay, anyway, I'll deal with that later.
Oh.
Well, it's because it's snowing, and she has free access to the outside, and I don't think she wants to be outside.
Oh.
74 degrees here.
Shut up, Grant.
I'll make sure to send the poop your way.
Yeah, exactly. We'll bag it up for you. Jesus.
Yes. I got some shit in the mail. It's like, well, what is it? I already said.
It's self-explanatory.
It is
Self-explanatory. So I was working so hard, and I was basically demanding that they hire an additional person, because not only was I doing PowerPoint and not only was I doing textbooks, I was also operating live surgical cameras, multiple high definition ones during live surgeries. I had a whole rack of servers that recorded video from various camera sources and computer sources, so they could all be brought together and then encoded, so I can then author Blu-ray DVDs of the lectures that can be taken with students, and just I was doing so much content creation, and also technical administration. When there was a technical problem, I fixed it. I was the printer guy. I was the IT guy. The only technical guy in the entire building. Everyone else.
Too many hats.
Too many hats. Because I said I could. So I did. Then, when I finally realized that it was causing trouble in my life, I said, I need help. And they said, you didn't need help before. And it is a cost for a company to endure an additional person, especially one in Seattle that has a technical expertise. They're not cheap.
Yeah. No.
So they didn't want to. I said, well, I kind of need to, because the problem was I can't scale back. They will not let me have less to do, because there's always things to do.
Right.
So unless somebody else takes that, it's not happening. So in the early 2011, there was a contest that Makerbot was holding. Makerbot was a young upstart who was making laser cut wood 3D printers that were starting to see their star was rising.
They were literally the first consumer, I'm putting quotes around that, consumer 3D printing company out there. What did the cupcake and Thing-O-Matic cost? They were like
I think the cupcake was like $750 for a do-it-yourself kit.
Yeah.
And the Thing-O-Matic was $1,200.
$1,200. Yep.
For a put it together. And when you put it together, you had the option of having a conveyor belt bed or just a flat bed.
the Thing-O-Matic that I had that I built had the conveyor bed, and we just started getting back into conveyor bed 3D printers. I think it's
really interesting how that's come around, isn't it?
Yeah,
totally different use case though. Well, I guess not, right? The print mill from Creality, or the CR30, is designed more to do really long stuff. The Thing-O-Matic was designed to do little tiny things, but lots of them.
Yeah.
And instead of a rubber belt, which is basically what Creality uses, we don't know the material yet, but it's like a rubber polymer material. Mm-hmm. It was capped on tape. Yeah, it was just a roll of capped on tape that you stuck to itself. Yep. And you looked at it the wrong way. The damn thing tore a hole, and it was effectively useless.
Oh yeah.
The Thing-O-Matic was it was a good printer, but especially in Florida, really problematic because laser cut wood has a tendency to expand and contract with moisture. So your tolerances varied upon
say goodbye to
ambient
dimensional
humidity.
accuracy.
Oh yeah.
You could do it if you were able to measure ambient humidity and you had the formula to adjust your parts.
Compensate.
It was insane. Now, at the time, the only other way to build a 3D printer was to look at the RepRap project with Rich and some of the other guys, Joe Prusa being one of them, and like go take a bunch of enterprise grade 2D printers apart, salvage the stepper motors, build your own ramps boards that went on top of an Arduino, and it kind of worked, but accuracy there was terrible. And then the filament was like nylon, and then eventually, and when I say nylon, I mean it actually started out being the freaking weed whacker.
The cyanide nylon,
yeah,
or the arsenic nylon.
The nasty nylon. And then we finally got ABS, and we're like, oh my god, the world is amazing. And then you remember all the problems that you had with ABS, and it was just like, this is just the way that it goes. Layer splitting, no, that's normal.
Warping.
Well, that's what you had.
Corners
RAFs
peeling
for.
up.
You had RAFs for that. But yeah, Makerbot really kind of started this, and there's an interesting story there.
Well, it was with the best intentions too. Like that's the thing is, we'll rag on Makerbot now because when they emerged and they started doing their thing just a little bit after the principal patent for the fused deposition modeling method had expired. Now, Stratasys, I taught a class on 3D design, which started with the history of 3D printing. The first kind of 3D printing that resembles what we do today is in 1984. It was Charles Hull. It was stereolithography. Then in 89, Stratasys came up with fused deposition modeling, which is FDM, which is what we do.
But we can't call it that. We got to call it FFF. Right?
Yeah, we got to call it FFF, fused filament fabrication. But the thing is that 89 patent had expired in 2009. And that opened the floodgates to creating just the bare minimum technical capability of the first 3D printers from the 80s. So what wound up happening, though, is that over time, Stratasys patented a lot of very important technological breakthroughs that made the process practical.
Yep.
But we couldn't do that. Like, there was a period of time where Makerbot could not sell the replicator with an enclosed body because that was a patent. You couldn't panelize your... So what happened was on Thingiverse, somebody had the laser cut plans to make the windows for the original replicator. So that was the tightrope that they walked all the time. Was, we need to do this. We can't do that. But we could, but we can't. So, there was a lot of that going on before 2013 when the floodgates opened up and things started getting a lot easier to breathe. But their first printers were literally the bare minimum of what could be legally sold.
Yep.
And it showed. A lot of the RepRap project could get away with it because it wasn't a relatively complete anything. It was something you really just had to make, but it was still also bare minimums. One of the Stratasys made their own formulation of ABS. That's why Stratasys printers print in ABS. They had chemical scientists make a plastic that behaved appropriately for this scenario. They also had printers that were not only enclosed, but had heaters that maintained an envelope of pressure and convection.
That's the big deal.
That's the huge deal. Like, I literally have a Replicator 2 that I have built a 12-volt heater into to create a convective environment so I can print ABS.
Be careful what
you say. Because it has
PVC
PVC sides. I know.
Well, no, I was saying the patent trolls at freaking Stratasys.
Yeah, but you can make it yourself.
Yeah, you can make it yourself.
Yes.
I just can't sell it.
You just can't sell it. Yeah.
So
you can do whatever you want yourself.
Of course, I'm on a different camera now, so you can't easily see it. But the Fusion 3, it is an enclosed printer, but the big patents that Stratasys still currently owns, they have the heated build chamber.
Yep.
And they have the motors on the outside of that heated chamber.
Of that chamber.
And that's a big deal if you want to print materials above nylon. Separate motors can handle up to about 100
You know what they also
C.
have as a patent?
What?
The H drive. The H drive is an XY Cartesian drive. So instead of having
a Core XY setup?
It's where there's two motors connected to the same belt. And basically it will pull and it will do this and it will create pantographic movement in the Cartesian system. That's also theirs, but only in use for 3D printers. So it's folded into that same motors on the outside thing. Mm-hmm. That's important because the Replicator 5th generation has that. And that was post Stratasys acquisition.
And that was a shit show of a machine. That machine was so bad. I just looked it up.
And you know why? Because now they had access to all of the intellectual properties that Stratasys had because they were part of Stratasys. So they can just start doing things. And they didn't really implement it that great.
So and I just looked this up, and we'll include the article in the description, but Forbes back in 2013 did a write-up on this, and the deal to buy out Makerbot by Stratasys was a $604 million deal with $403 million upfront in exchange for 100% of Makerbot's stock, and the remaining 2/3 of the deal will be subject to Makerbot's performance during the next 2 years.
Yes.
I have a feeling they got every dime of that. And I'm sorry, but as much as everyone really hated Bree and what he did by selling out the company, you offer anybody more than $500 million.
They're going to take it.
To give everybody in the industry the big middle finger and run away any day of the week. Someone come and offer me that kind of money. I will personally figure out a way to get to every one of our customers, give them the middle finger, and walk away.
Yes. Also, thank you for supporting 3D Musketeers.
Yeah, thank you to all of our customers.
Yeah, please.
Hey,
we're not going to do that.
I would tell you why I'm going to do it. None of you are going to disagree with me at this point, okay? Y'all know how friggin' hard we work to make.
I can see somebody went to business school.
Look, all right.
But Brent, you enter the contest.
Sorry.
So I entered this contest that Makerbot was holding, and it was to design a mascot because they were very interested in doing a lot of fun things, and they wanted a little mascot to do that. So there was a lot of super capable people making some very impressive stuff. I was watching the Thingiverse thing start piling in. I was like, oh, Molly. I had just started poking around with another Autodesk product called Inventor. And I had never done parametric modeling before. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to take a stab at this. So I acquire Autodesk Inventor.
You legally got it like a good little boy.
Absolutely.
Oh, of course.
No.
Oh, certainly.
No, so I got I dipped into the equity of my home and purchased a license. And then a 1-year license. So,
because that's all it'll get you.
Yeah, I'm a cartoonist as well. Originally, I like shape and I like form. I liked Wall-E. I liked Johnny Five from Short Circuit.
Anything you want to show off?
I remember that movie.
By the time this episode airs, the things that you and I have been working on will have already become public. So if there's anything you'd like to show, you're welcome to. But if you don't want to, that's fine.
Okay.
But Brent is an amazing 2D sketch artist. Thomas, the two of you would have a ton of fun just talking about art. And I one day, and this is like a content thing that I want to do, where we give you both an idea and we record it somehow while we're recording like a computer screen or a Cintiq or some sort of sketch pad, and neither of you can see each other, and we see what you each make. But
that would be nice.
I don't know how
fun.
I want to do this, but I don't know how we can turn it into content for 3DM. Because, like, could you design something in 2D and then you move into 3D? See, then you're touching it in Blender. I don't know. Like our mascot has always been.
I don't think it needs that much of a reason, to be honest. Because content is content. You know,
what you want.
In marketing, you're not telling a story
Let's do
of
it.
what
I
you're
mean,
doing. It's a
screw it.
story of you, and people buy you. They don't buy what
Hopefully
you do.
they're buying us and not just me.
Who said this? Oh, I listen to a bunch of podcasts, and I dip my little fingies into marketing all the time because I'm marketing adjacent. I never tell people that I am a marketer because then I'll get more marketing jobs, and I don't want them.
Is it that people don't buy what you do; they buy why you do it?
It's similar. It's giving your marketing strategy. So it's all about teaching and providing and being someone who wants to just, and I mean, it's why YouTube and people making vlogs is so popular.
Why we have a
podcast.
It's
because they're just
That's
giving,
free.
It's like,
it literally costs me money to do this. Everybody on this call is getting paid but me.
You're a business owner. Taking a dump costs money.
You're not wrong.
But yeah, I mean, similarly, it's so hard to, I have to tell people this all the time when I'm doing marketing things for them. It's like, yeah, see, like the way you're looking at it for your business is you're asking me all these questions of like, well, why would we do this and why would we do that? And the moment you dissect this thing, you're going to take all the character out of it.
Exactly.
Because people
don't ask
want,
why.
People want the authentic and sometimes doing the weirdest fucking shit. Mm-hmm. And as long as it's not, defamatory,
right.
As long as it's not like actually hurting a company image for whatever reason, and it's not like, so crazy that it would never work, but like the amount of crazy, and it's like, well, why? It's Conoco's a great example. Conoco had these ads that they started doing, and they are a gas station.
Yeah.
They started making ads with anime characters, and they made their own anime, 100%. And the question would be, well, why did you do that? And the answer is why not? And it worked.
It's like KFC made a dating sim.
No. KFC paid Lifetime and produced an actual hour and a half long telenovela romance story called
with
The Recipe for Seduction.
Yeah. Oh my god! But it's things like that it's like
it's like just do it.
Well, yeah, no.
It had Mario Lopez as Colonel Sanders.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's like, well, just do it and stop overthinking it, because if it's fun, if you like it, then the chances are other people are going to connect with it, because it's like, oh, this is fun and I like this because this is just people doing their thing,
and that's all the reason you need.
Yeah.
Like,
and on top of the heart element of that, if you are quiet, you are irrelevant. Everyone is so fast with consumption now that if you're not in their eyes, on their feed, you disappear.
It's kind of disgusting how
it's disgusting. But that's the thing, is if you can find a way to be active socially and have integrity about it, that's the goal. And integrity doesn't mean you're meticulously crafting a message. It's literally, as Thomas said, just do it. Just be there.
And having fun in that. Yeah, and being present and basically just turning on the recordings and making content out of it.
Just
is like,
doing anything.
Just a flow of consciousness.
And then that helps because you also won't burn yourself out on it because you're just doing
because you're not using your top list ideas that you have to meticulously develop. You're just like, I thought of something funny. Let me make sure that there's no archaic swear words in it. Perfect.
Archaic swear words are not something we care about right now.
So it would be like, I mean, and like, just to get off to round up the tangent, maybe.
Yeah, back to Makerbot.
But to basically say, it's like I mean, like, if you were going to make content for 3D Musketeers that involves, me and Brent drawing something, it's like, why not? Because this is also the Making Awesome podcast, which is also a completely different thing that is completely whatever you want it to be. Because it's your company, right? You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, damn it. I can do what I want.
You don't need us to tell you that.
I'm going to do whatever makes us money, honestly, because we need money. Please.
The money will come.
Being socially relevant makes you money.
At this point,
What if I don't like being social?
Being present makes you money.
Look, man, the most recent thing that got us a bunch of attention was a freaking meme. Bernie Sanders.
Hey. There you go.
There you go.
Go hard.
Anyways.
Ride that wave.
This to me is a big deal because I know what happens with this Makerbot thing. Talk to us about this.
Okay. So, I spend my first time in Autodesk Inventor, and I like character design. I know a lot of things about what makes a character endearing and charming. So I sat down and I tried to think, what could be made into a logo? What could be done in this? What could be done in that? And then, of course, like all great ideas, I go to the bathroom. It comes to me, among other things. And then I go back to the computer, and then I come up with this guy. So this is the robot that I had designed. It's clearly, it looks like a 3D printer on the inside, but he has a little spool backpack with the Makerbot M on it. So I spend a couple days making this an Inventor, just kind of getting used to it, exploiting and overusing fillets. Just going nuts with fillets. Fillets for days.
That's my motto. I everything.
I am Mr. Chamfer and Fillet. They'll be like, "Why did this break?" And I'm like, let me tell you about my friend.
Didn't have enough fillets. Let's talk about stress concentrations.
Oh yeah, no. The moment I found out the finite element analysis tab, I'm like,
yeah, you lose that fusion.
Possibilities are endless.
Well, it does what I think I'm doing in my head. I'm just like pushing on something. I'm like, that's gonna break. Let me see what the numbers say.
And now we have proof.
The numbers don't lie. Proof. But Brent, you submitted this. And I
submitted this.
If anyone knows Makerbot, you'll know.
Yeah, like I was a nobody. I had no previous accounts. I heard about it on Slashdot. You know, that's how obscurely it made its way to me. And then I was like, I want to try this. And like a couple days before the deadline, I did it because it was kind of an afterthought. And turns out I won. I won the contest. Now, what that meant was I won the right to give up any ownership of the idea I ever had, as well as anything that looks like it. But also, I got a Thing-O-Matic out of the deal. So they sent me a Thing-O-Matic, and I enjoy it. And because I'd never done 3D printing either, I had kind of watched it happen. But I was of the sort where, when I first heard about the DIY 3D printers was when I also became aware that 3D printing at all had existed even 20 years prior. You know, I was like, wait, this was a thing? But it was so locked in the professional world of the universities and the architecture firms that there was no chance you'd ever get your hands on one unless you were in those industries, period. So, I was one of the cool kids. So then I started coming up with ideas, and I started building a Thingiverse account with ideas that I was making. All sorts of things, like a mechanical encoder that measured how much filament would pass into the printer, the filamometer, and it was basically just, you know, like a mechanical counter. This turns one full rotation.
And it's a set distance, circumference.
Yeah, the circumference dictated the thing. So, you know, the circumference of the catch wheel, you know, was okay-ish in its accuracy. Things like that. I was like, this is fun, this is cool, this is awesome. And then, you know, not even... They were almost done with the Thingiverse. They were already working on the replicator when they held the contest. So, I had put a bunch of stuff up on the Thingiverse, and people were liking it. So then, as a thank you, they arbitrarily sent me a replicator just out of nowhere. Just you've been doing cool stuff. You've been engaging with the thing. We think this is cool. Never use the Thing-O-Matic again. So they sent me a replicator, the original one, and it was a good machine. It was crazy. It was a workhorse. In fact, that replicator I sold to the makerspace here in Tacoma, and it's still churning parts. It's crazy. It's their ABS exclusive machine though, because I did all the upgrades to it.
Tad. I mean, that truly
that is a treat especial.
Truly a great machine.
So, as a way of saying thank you, I wanted to make something special. And what I did was I took using only the replicator, I disassembled all of the parts to the Thing-O-Matic, and then whipped out my calipers.
As one
and
does.
then little by little, I started assembling a 3D printer that resembled the mascot that I designed, but it was the Thing-O-Matic, and I called it the R-Maker Special Edition, the Thing-O-Matic Special Edition. And let's see if I can. So the thing about this design was that every part that was formerly wood was 3D printed. Like if I had like this is the backbone, that's the Z axis there. One of the feet held onto the ATX power supply. And this was a design that I was actually designing as I went. But all of the electronics fit into this cage that was part of the console.
Looks nothing like boards do now, which I've always loved.
Yeah, and see, there's the Arduino Mega there on their main board. I designed it where the USB and the SD card were accessible from the side. That made
where have I seen this before?
that made this, which is the main console. I designed this whole front piece using their fonts.
That's beautiful.
And all these buttons are printed. You know, everything is printed. Like everything is printed.
Yeah. It looks like the Famicom or something. It's amazing.
Yes, I was actually going for that kind of 80s Japanese kind of
love the red and gray. Yeah.
Yeah. It's easier to see there. So yeah, and then the reset and everything is indicated, all the lights, everything lined up with the old stuff. But it's all being printed on a replicators, and also nothing had support material.
Beautiful.
I learned a long time ago about the wastefulness of support material. So every part was designed to print in a specific orientation as to not require support material. So everything in here was printed in Caddy, and that's why it has this strange kind of mosaic of alignments in it, is because it's literally like it's either have this be 3 parts or have to use support material. So it has everything like in here. See, there's like since it was cramped, it had about the same footprint as the Thing-O-Matic. The cables kept getting in the way. So I actually made this support arm that carried the cables and folded them. Then it had an access down to the driver boards, which were here, which there's the specific place where the
and if you're listening,
stop.
If you're listening audio only, just back up 5 minutes, go to the video. We'll have the link to the YouTube.
We'll have it.
I'm pulling up pictures into the view.
We can describe this to you all day,
but it's a thing of beauty. You got to see it.
You have to see it because there are so many things like, oh yeah, this is early, mid-early 2000s 3D printing. I can see the layer splits where the ABS.
Oh yeah, because this is all ABS too. None of this is PLA.
But because PLA wasn't a thing back then, or maybe it was just coming out. But
it had come out, but it was still in its infancy.
But
did I just delete my face? I think I deleted my face.
For ABS, I mean, that's gorgeous. Anyone that's printed in ABS knows not only the issue that you deal with all the heating, but the smell that comes along with it.
Oh yeah,
it reeks.
Nope. I'm in a circle now.
You're in a circle.
But the camera fell asleep.
Yeah,
okay.
Camera's asleep.
Here, let me put some more pictures up while I do that. It had the spool on the back. You can see also the cable management that's built into it. You can see the reverse, the zip ties that are popping through the back.
It's amazing.
It was planned in the design for that. So this design kept on going. I worked on it, and halfway through working on it, here's the replicator doing all the work. I've made cattywampus acrylic windows on it and this top part to keep the heat in.
It's just a tub.
It's just a tub that but did the job. There's the handy captain back there. I'm the kind of person who actually used the areas that were clear of the Z platform as storage.
I see you got like pliers in there or something.
Yeah, there's
Kapton tape, big friggin' roll of Kapton.
Oh yeah. My first design on the Thingiverse was the Captain Caddy, which was actually a little swivel drawer set that was cylindrical that fit in the center of the captain roll. So you'd slide, the captain would hold everything together, and you could carry the whole thing. And then when you lifted the cylinder off, it made these little storage drawers.
This is what making awesome is all about. Like,
it
sincerely,
is absolutely.
And there's so much more to your story. I know Thomas has to leave soon, so that might we'll have to change over to a 3-piece.
Okay.
But it's amazing to me because this is what being a maker is all about. And you've really embodied this idea that we have here as making awesome. If anyone's wondering, if you're watching, he's using an OBS virtual cam.
Yeah.
So he can pull up whatever he wants. And it's really cool, and I'm still learning to do it.
Oh gosh, there's an earthquake and everything.
You don't have an earthquake sound effect to use? This is very upsetting. I'm just letting you know that.
No, the only thing I have is real-time special effects. But halfway through designing this, I sent a message to Bree because I have his cell phone number.
Bree Pettis, right?
Yeah, Bree Pettis.
The former owner of Makerbot, or at the time
The
he
former
was
owner of Makerbot, because he had messaged me a few times, and I told him about this project, and he loved it. So much so, he sent me another Thing-O-Matic to use as spare parts if I broke any of the stuff.
Get it out of the office.
$5,000. And wanted to fly me to New York to present it. So in that process, I had also talked about my job at the time, which was at the dentist's office. I was getting sick of looking at bloody teeth every day. I got sick of just being incredibly exhausted. It was affecting my ability to build a meaningful relationship with my soon-to-be wife. Not only that, I was living in downtown Seattle in a 600-something square foot studio apartment that cost, at the time, $2,000 a month, which now costs $3,800 a month. For that location, which is right there on South Lake Union. It's tough because it would be walking distance from Amazon now.
That's like $50,000 a year in rent.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Welcome to Seattle. So things were starting to catch up with me. Cost of living, mental health, emotional, just all this stuff. So I was like, I'm really enjoying making. I'm really enjoying 3D printing, designing things, coming up with ideas. So he's like, I think you have talent. I think we could use you. I'm like, okay. So I finish up the project. It works. It's functional. It's doing what it's supposed to do. In fact,
there's a little shadow that wants your attention too.
Yeah, I know. She's looking at me right now. Here's a video of it printing its own eye.
Yes.
Like the last things for it to do was to print its eyes. So that was the test for it. Which were also the only parts that would fit on that little bed. But it fully functioned. In fact, it worked better in this form factor than it did as wood. It was very rigid. Like, I was surprised at how rigid this thing became. So
that had flying stepper motors.
Beautiful.
Oh, yeah, no. I had it going. It was running a very early version of the Marlin firmware. And so it was just going nuts. But yeah, so there was, so it was doing its thing. It worked. I took it apart, packaged it up, sent it to New York. November of 2012, I went also. I met Bree Pettis. I went to an event where they were opening the first Makerbot retail store in New York. I shook his hand, went to the office, got a tour of the whole place, met a bunch of people that I admire. Went to the office, sat down, and started signing paperwork to work for them remotely. I was like, oh, things are happening. Things are happening finally. And I quit my job, have a big party. It was a good send-off. In fact, my boss, he got me a Mont Blanc pen, which is very meaningful for him because he carries a Mont Blanc, which is his power pen. That's like it's not just a symbol, it's a good pen too. Mont Blanc makes good Aufschreibens. But the one he got me was laser engraved to say secret weapon, because I was his secret weapon. He would always tell me, like, I pushed his content to a level where it was better than anybody else. Everyone was catching up with him, and they were failing at it. So I was his secret weapon, and it was very meaningful because I had a good relationship with the owner and teacher. Wonderful man. The staff were good people, but there was a lot of nepotism. There was a lot of big egos, and since I entered that environment as a meek, timid person, I was always the punching bag. I was always, well, he's just complaining for whatever, and I hardly ever complained. So when serious things came along, it's like, you never complain, so there's no point. It's just like it became.
It's a terrible
emotionally hard to work in that environment.
It is.
So even though I loved the guy I was working for, I wasn't technically working for just him, because I had people above me, below him. So it got hard. So I resigned on good terms, and then I enjoyed December, looking forward to January 1st when they would start giving me remote work. Then January came, and January I heard nothing. Hello? Remember me? Well, hang on, is what I would hear. Just a sec. Just hang on. Just a sec. Come February 1st, I get a message that says, we have had an internal restructuring and no longer need your services. So,
kick in the gut.
I quit the best paying job of my life. Now, I don't regret that. That's an important point I want to make.
Because it was taking its toll, right?
It was taking its toll.
For sure.
I wanted to build a life with my girlfriend. I wanted to not be trapped in an environment like Seattle. And it was a cathartic thing. So, but all of a sudden, bark, we no longer need your services. Turns out that was internally what was going on was they were getting acquired by Stratasys. And externally, that's what happened. But internally, one of the main things that was not verified, because I won't say it was verified, but I have strong hearsay as to the validity of the statement that Makerbot could not grow anymore. They were incapable of growing their products because the most logical next steps included things that were basically still patented.
Mm-hmm.
You can only go so far with FDM. So the king of FDM, Stratasys, they said, look, we know that you basically built our stuff using our IP that was allowed to you. So I'll tell you what, we don't have a consumer division. They were always the big boys. So we will just acquire you and you will be our consumer division. The lowest end Stratasys was like a $12,000 machine called the Mojo. And the Mojo was a...
Oh, the Mojo. Oh, it was so bad. It was so bad.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, it worked, but the thing is very small build platform. The build platform was the way Stratasys works is in consumables. Your build
that's a business
plate
model.
Your build plate is a ABS tray that is not reusable.
That is correct.
Oh.
So it's just this big plastic plate, and you have to get new ones, and they're $20 a piece. Their filaments are all microchipped, clearly. And also, here's the other thing. They have two filaments, a support material, which is soluble in a solution, and their standard ABS.
Solution is lie-based,
It
by
will
the way.
always use both.
Yep.
Even if you don't.
Even if you say no. It decides when to use that material because it will enshroud your part. And it does this,
For like
understandably,
reasons, right?
to keep everything clean and straight and sharp because they cannot guarantee the spatial accuracy of a part because of some strange thing you did to its design. It's not going to risk it. It will always enshroud it in support material. So you're using two things all the time and then spending like 3 hours in a hot bath just to get your part out. Makes good parts, but again, very expensive.
Yeah.
That was their model. And, that's the thing is that's if you're in an architectural firm and you're building a $80 million building and you need to print very detailed plastic models of things, that's nothing. And that's always been their bread and butter. But, the maker movement has bred this new talent core that can't muster that. But what's cool is working within the limitations of that, we have innovated in some very fascinating spaces. Like, I swear, I've used the preparation software that Stratasys has for their professional models, for their highest end printers, for their Dimension 60 whatever 100 million zillions.
1200 ES, yeah. Or SST, then there was the Fortis line.
I got the pleasure of designing a couple things that got printed on a Fortis.
Yeah, and they do gorgeous prints.
They're amazing. However, their software is terrible.
It is.
It gives you no control.
Thomas has to go.
I do have to go, unfortunately.
He does.
Sorry.
Okay.
And Brent,
we'll keep talking.
Can we play him out? Because you got another talent you didn't talk about. Can we do something to play Thomas out?
Okay.
Oh.
Something I don't think I told Thomas about, but
no, I think you told me about this, but it's
now. See, this is a digital accordion
because such a thing does exist, which I love. The fact.
Yeah, I didn't know that was.
It's a fairly recent thing. Like the first one was in 2004, and Roland owns all the patents on it. But it's a very versatile machine.
See, Thomas, now, when have you ever been serenaded on a podcast?
Now, what's also fun is it's also a MIDI controller.
Oh, yes.
And
so you're going to make me build a musical Tesla coil. I see what's going on.
Oh, here we go.
Let's see. And now I know how I say to you. Bum, bum, bum.
That's so good.
This is amazing.
Things you don't ever think are going to happen on this podcast.
Oh, yeah. But let's see. Let's see. Pick a good patch here. There's like 100 accordions in this thing because there's a lot of different sounds different accordions make. Let's see. I want. There we go. Okay.
It's also in stereo, which I find really interesting.
Yes. Yeah, I got stereo out, and I'm using Zoom Professional Audio, so you should be getting a good.
Yeah, I do.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I could do that with my own voice. I could be like, I'm over here, now I'm over here, and now I'm over here. Ooh, ASMR.
I think that's how that works.
Let's see, so.
Copyright strikes, copyright strikes, copyright strikes.
It's a cover, Grant. I think we're fine.
It's not a copyright strike because we're not monetizing.
Shut up.
Oh, I don't think this will strike.
No, we're good.
Nope. I haven't practiced this morning. And then the sign off, it's the.
you.
See you later, Thomas.
Bye. Can I get played out like that every time?
That's
leave
what I'm
every
saying,
podcast
man.
early from now on.
By the way, you remember how we were saying that we needed like good music and stuff to use for, you know, for all the coming intros that we're going to use?
I do a bit of scoring and composing.
I was about to say, I think we found our man.
I think we found it. We'll see you
all
later,
right, well,
Thomas.
Yeah,
Hey, Thomas.
I'll talk to all of you later. So yeah, we'll talk more soon, Brent, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Like, all right, to a 3-piece.
Okay, 3-piece.
Oh, no one's in the right spots. Give me a second. Let me move people around.
Whoa, whoa, oh, jeez.
Oh, jeez.
Careful.
That's good. This is good. This is good. Keep doing that. Keep doing that.
Well,
whatever. People are in the wrong spots. It doesn't matter.
we know who's who.
So after the punch gut with Makerbot,
Yeah.
I encountered something challenging. The first thing was like, great, now I have no income.
Yeah.
And I'm renting. Dun, dun, dun. And I'm going to get married this year too. Dun dun dun. So, luckily I had a retirement account.
Mm-hmm.
So, I cashed out my retirement account, put it down on a house, and purchased a home in Tacoma. That was probably the smartest thing I've ever done, for the simple fact that I bought it for $157,000 in 2013, and it's now going for about $320,000. So there's equity there. So if something really bad happens, that there is access to emergency if ever needed. Are talking really bad, like hospitalized, life or death, stuff. But for the most part, having security in your living arrangements is probably one of the best ways to alleviate living stress. So that was a tactical move that was well. Another good tactical move was marrying the girlfriend, because that makes it a lot easier to keep a hold of them.
Boy, there are better ways to say that.
There are better ways to say that.
Well, we know what you mean.
Yeah, no, it's more than wonderful. So since I moved to a new area, I started getting used to wandering around for a small little bit of time after having quit. There was a period of time from February to July, which is when I bought the house. In that small window of time, there's a maker space up in Seattle called the Metrics Create Space. It's a good fixture of makerdom, and my experiences with Makerbot allowed me to work there, doing shop stuff. That's when I had the displeasure of getting familiar with the Z Corp printers. As well as
that's my bread and butter.
As my first experience with a laser cutter of a CO2 type, also pick and place machines and all sorts of cool making goodies. The Metrics Create Space is a wonderful place, right there in the core of Seattle on Capitol Hill, and they got. If you're in the area and you're looking for a good maker space, that is a wonderful place. A lot of super talented people there. The staff is very passionate about whatever it is you're doing. So it's not just their passions; they also care about what you're doing.
And that's what you need in a makerspace. You need a staff that truly understands the give a damn training. And it's like we say when we're looking to hire people. You can, your background is beautiful, and that's we love to hear people's stories. But at the end of the day, your background doesn't mean anything if you don't have the give a damn training. And you either got it or you don't. We can teach you everything else you need to know, like without many limitations. We cannot teach you to care. And if there's one good piece of advice when it comes to job interviews, just care. And look, I get it. At the end of the day, for a lot of you out there, the job can just be a paycheck and a means to make rent and child support or whatever the hell you got going on in your lives. But if you don't show that you care, why would a business go with you over someone else? Even if the other person is less qualified, but they care, right? Passion is what truly separates someone that is good from someone that is great. Think about that. Anyways, there's your little insight for the day. Sorry,
I worked there for a few months. It was wonderful. My job there, however, was basically doing registration and having people come in and familiarizing them with tools, more of a clerical, keep things clean kind of a thing.
Right.
Which I also learned was not my best thing. One of the big issues is I was living a few cities away at that point because I moved out of Seattle as quickly as I could.
That's a bit of a commute.
So it was a bigger. Well, I hadn't even moved to Tacoma yet. I was in Renton, but
I know Renton.
It was a bit of a commute to downtown Seattle. I was late often, which was not good for that kind of a business. Another good thing to know, which actually kind of is to know when something is not a good fit. You could love something, but there's a good possibility that there's just the way your life is structured doesn't allow for it, and you have to make decisions, and it's okay. It's okay when something just doesn't work.
Oh yeah.
They said, you've been late a lot, and that's not okay. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think I can make that work. Like, there's too many variables involved. I'm not getting enough sleep anyway. I was still dealing with stuff, and depression was starting to kick in. That kick from Makerbot really kind of threw me for a loop, because I was picturing a new life that just disappeared.
Well, and rightly so.
It puts you into a hole that you don't want to find yourself in.
Right. So I had asked them, I had pled with them, like, is there something I can do in this new arrangement? And they're like, unless you want to move to New York for a minimum wage job, then no. So, like, they would have hired me as something in the company, but I would have to live there. And I'm not moving to New York. You cannot make me.
You thought Seattle was expensive.
Well, so it was right at that point where I had then bought the house. That whole unemployment thing gave me an opportunity, one, to build my computer the way I wanted it, because I was going to do a lot of contract work. It's actually this computer over here, which is a i7-4770 with 32 gigs of RAM, and at the time it had a 650 GTX in it. Spent like almost $4,000 building a computer, but it was to the nines. It was so good. I was able to use that thing literally until last year. And it still just chugs along. It's a very capable machine.
Those 4000 series truly.
Yeah.
I believe that's when I think the 4000 series, the 7000 series, and the 9000 series are the three times that Intel has truly peaked in terms of their, it went up, then boom, it kind of flatlined, boom, and like. Tad's running a 4000 series. I'm running a 4000 series. And these are our daily driver computers.
Good. Yeah. I haven't seen the need to change.
And yes, don't get me wrong. We have the Zoom call, and we have Streamlabs that's doing all the recording for the podcast. And I'm sitting anywhere between 70 and 90% CPU utilization. But we did find yesterday, Brent, that it's Streamlabs that's really the problem. Normal OBS and my computer get along just fine.
Oh, yeah. No, Streamlabs is not very well optimized because it's all web stuff. It's actually like the whole interface is SVG. It's actually being rendered vectors.
It's just a picture?
Well, it would be great
it's like a web page in a browser window, and it's constantly being inefficiently rendered. It's just how they did it. It's a wrapper for OBS.
I'm sitting here at, we're got about 75% CPU utilization. My GPU is at 15%. The 1080 Ti could not care. It doesn't even know that it's even trying hard. I doubt its fans are even on.
Oh yeah.
And the CPU is like, oh
Yeah. Oh yeah.
and it's like, guys, there are better ways to do this.
Yeah.
Like,
But
there are way better ways.
But for most people, who they wouldn't know.
Most people don't need to be recording 3 videos at once with stereo audio and then projecting it onto another frame to then record that again with stereo audio.
It takes a bit of juice.
Yeah,
Just a little bit.
I am asking a fair bit. I'm aware of what I'm asking here. But it is certainly interesting. Sorry, this is normal for us to tangent.
So what happened after that?
I get the house in Tacoma, and then I need to find a job because I'm doing contract work, but it's very slow going. So I find out that there is a makerspace in Tacoma, a great place called Fab Lab. Steve Tibbetts is the proprietor, and the place was. The place he is well to do on his own from both family and his occupation, and he put a lot of his personal wealth into building this place out. It has Festool woodworking tools. Yeah. Anyone who knows what that means knows that that's good stuff. Has all sorts of lathes and laser cutters. It has Epilogue laser cutters, and right now they have a huge soiree of 3D printers from all sorts of manufacturers. And he works in microchip design. He's actually a microchip designer for, I believe, the company Microchip. But,
great name. Good branding.
Descriptive.
Yeah, very descriptive. Hey, they're
better than 3D
time.
Musketeers.
They've been around for a long time.
I mean,
I think it's them. It might be a different company, but that's what my memory says. But I worked there first as a clerk because my Thingiverse reputation preceded me. They had already printed some of the stuff that I had designed, so my resume was, I did that. And they're like, okay. So I was running the shop, and then I started doing actually CAD design for people who would walk in and ask who had an idea, this wonderful idea, and needed things manufactured or fabricated for patents. And a lot of the time, those ideas probably shouldn't have happened.
This is sounding familiar.
But some ideas were not great ideas anyway.
Yeah.
But money was money. And
Word.
I met a lot of people and made a lot of connections. That was another job where near the end of it, we had a profit we needed to generate to be sustainable. And the business model did not work that well with that. There was stuff going behind the scenes, like the University of Washington was building a campus in downtown Tacoma, so there was a lot of new people coming in, as well as contracts with the University of Washington to allow students to use the equipment as well. So there was some good stuff in the background, but a lot of fun projects there too. I designed a soapbox derby racer that looked like a DeLorean.
Oh, that's cool.
And I think I have the Fablorian project file still. And
the name is beautiful, really.
I love it.
Oh yeah. Let's see, Fab Lab.
By the way, Tad, I've switched chairs. I'm in the Herman Miller Aaron now.
How are you liking it?
Now that I'm sitting in it, it's good. If you do not sit with like proper posture, it reminds you by being a little uncomfortable. But dude, proper posture. Is it worth double the price of a Steelcase Leap V2? I don't think so.
But it feels good.
I paid less for this secondhand, so.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, the Leap I got secondhand for $350. This was $225. Worth it. Yes, I have $600 office chairs, but I got a bad back. Damn it!
I was gonna say you deserve nice things, Grant. Don't begrudge yourself that.
And it also like leans. like well, okay, I've got the tension turned up to where I can't lean back all that far, but it leans far enough back that you get the Jesus take the wheel moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this.
Oh yeah. I know that moment. Like, I went back to the office the other day after not being there for a while to take some pictures of parts and stuff, and I sat down in my chair and I forgot what the tension of that was, which is not very much. And I was like, oh.
Yep.
I did. I had a Hank Hill moment. Oh.
Yes.
Oh. Dang it, Bobby.
Oh.
God, I'm not the only one that likes King of the Hill.
No, we love King of the Hill. Are you kidding?
It is truly a wonderful...
Well, I look like I know what a JPEG is.
No, I don't know what a JPEG is.
Oh, that's amazing.
Man.
Oh,
you even put the flux capacitor. Yes.
Yes.
And it functions, actually, it's like an LED scroll that does...
Does the little...
Yeah, it does
look at that.
the marquee.
And for those that are listening audio only, it is a mini DeLorean.
With bicycle wheels.
It's a Targa top. Okay, there are no going doors. He doesn't need doors where they're going. It's on bike wheels.
This thing looks like it could go pretty damn fast.
It appears that if
it went very fast.
If it went to 88 miles an hour, it could potentially disintegrate.
Yeah.
I did the math. It went to 88 scale miles per hour.
Oh. Well, that's what... There you go.
So remember in the first
works.
Fast and Furious movie where it says danger to manifold, and he says shut up, and he slams the computer shut, and for some reason the floor of the car gets thrown, like the floor of the car breaks away instead of the manifold.
Oh yeah, this is after the race. It had bumped into something and broke the taillight. But
oh man, you got them afterburners though.
Yeah, and it has the
That's
it has the dash with the plutonium gauges and
the attention to detail here is
and it looks like is it steel frame?
So here's the thing. I wanted to learn how to use Inventor's sheet metal and tubular steel functionality. So I designed a weldment, which is what they call it, of square steel rods, and it gave me the calculations of all of the mitered angles. Ooh. So I was literally... So here's the beauty of it. I was able to give to a welder the raw stock and a list of cuts and angles. And they gave me... And where to weld them. And they gave me exactly the right thing in the end. Like... That's when I learned the power of good documentation and good design, especially when you're working with fabricators, because literally they're used to having to figure it out on the fly.
The less you make them interpret, the better.
Yeah, exactly.
If you are a potential customer and you are hearing this, Tad, say it again for the people in the back.
Give us as much information as possible, because the less we have to kind of fill in the gaps, the closer we're going to get to what you are envisioning.
Read as less BS, less money, more awesome.
Just the facts, ma'am.
The side panels are brushed aluminum. They're dye bond, which is a sign making material. Yeah. So the whole thing shimmers. It's all brushed aluminum. Went pretty darn fast. I even did finite element analysis to determine that if it was to hit something, how would any of the welds break? And on the first version that I designed, if it was to take a side impact or a front corner impact, one of the crossbars would detach and impale the driver. So I was like, let me change that. So now from the front,
the NTHS, whatever, National
NTHSB or whatever,
HSTSA.
And so there's a straight bar now that went from the front corner all the way to behind the driver's seat now. So now that if it buckled, there was nothing that would happen. But no, this is also actually a pedal car, so you can pedal it around, and then for the race, you remove the chain, and then it becomes a gravity racer. So yeah, it was fun. It was a fun project. It got some press.
It's the right level of potentially death that I prefer.
Oh yeah,
you're not just
gonna skirt that line.
You probably won't die, but in the event of a wreck, you're gonna have a scar that will tell a story for the rest of your life. That's the
I
level
love
of
this.
danger that I like.
But I was spending a lot of time talking to customers who had just walked in the door, thinking that they had the idea they'll retire on.
Oh my God!
And,
Yes,
Sounds like our
times.
everyday.
What's more is
Welcome,
I
by
got
the way.
paid pretty close to minimum wage, but the customer was charged a pretty substantial rate. So I wasn't seeing much of that. So it was turning into I was working a lot more, and it wasn't benefiting me.
I'd
So,
like to believe our profit margins are pretty reasonable. That's all I'm saying.
But you know what? He had a business model that prioritized profit, and that's fine. Again, another one of those situations where, you know, here's a very important thing I also learned: don't talk shit on somebody who isn't there to defend themselves.
Makes
Because
you look
it's really
like an
easy to-
asshole. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really easy to characterize things by other people's motives, but that's just not fair, and that doesn't make you look nice.
No,
either.
it doesn't.
Like, because really you are in control of yourself ultimately, and yeah, things happen. Yeah, people have their motives, but it's how you react and move on that matters more than who caused it and why. So, at about this time, I was starting to have health problems. I had an ear infection that was ravaging my
In
cortex.
there, that's not fun.
And it made its way all the way to the brain. So I wound up having to start paying more attention to my own health, and stress was also taking a toll. That stress also started manifesting as depression, because I was now in a situation where I've done quite a few things, and I've been feeling good about my accomplishments. But then when I quit the Fab Lab, I started putting resumes out, and nobody was biting. Like a lot of jobs out there are looking for a specific person, and I'm not specific enough. Even though I have all these things and all this knowledge that I accumulated from experiences, I wasn't an expert at anything. Like I was a jack of all trades, master of none.
Certainly better than a master of one.
of
Everyone says, and I
You
remember
forget the
telling
end.
it to you the first
Yeah.
time. Everyone forgets the end. Everybody, and look, being
Yeah.
a master of one is a great thing. It's wonderful. You will find a career.
But you're pigeonholed at that point.
You are pigeonholed. That is correct.
And I like jumping between things. I'm doing a lot of computer animation now in Blender. I spent 2020 learning Blender in quarantine, and now I've shed everything that is non-parametric. So I started really sinking into depression. Now at that time, I also had met a pair of gentlemen. One is Ed Ivory, which you're familiar with.
We have
as
not
well as-
interviewed Ed. I'm familiar with Ed.
Yeah.
But I know Tad is not. Thomas is
No.
not. Ed is another maker extraordinaire, and he's part of the weekly 9 to midnight Eastern or 6 to 9 your guys' time
Maker hangout thing.
weekly maker hangout. Yeah, he's always got something cool he's working on. He'd be actually a pretty cool guest for the podcast.
He has some very cool stories because he's a veteran of the Air Force. So there's a lot
Yes,
of
he is.
interesting things, and a lot of sad things happen in the Air Force too. So, you know that he has a very very dynamic story, which is worth a hear.
I think everybody's story is worth to hear. It's a
Oh, yeah,
matter of whether or
absolutely.
not it falls within the making awesome category. But yeah, anyone from those groups will. And you know, it's interesting how we all kind of we have people that we all know, right? I've done business with Bree. You know, obviously Brent knows Bree, and a lot of the makers know Bree. It's interesting how there are some key players in this industry. Whether you like them or not is irrelevant, but their commonalities, for whatever reason they were, that we all had some sort of interaction with, and it's part of the reason we are where we are. And that's what we like. Is it's not about where you are. It's like we've spent no time talking about where Brent is now. We talked about his story.
I think we're getting there. Yeah,
we are
getting there.
But the thing is, that's why we call ourselves the 3D Musketeers, right? The story of the Three Musketeers is not about where they are; it's how they got there and why, and the significance to it, and what it all means. Although realistically, that doesn't have much to do with the name, but nonetheless,
Sure.
listen to episode 1 if you want to learn about the name.
I'll be D'Artagnan.
No, D'Artagnan. D'Artagnan is the big full color 3D printer. Okay, it's literally named that on the network. It has a static IP, and its IP name is
My name is
D'Artagnan.
Inigo Montoya. You kill my father. Prepare to die.
Prepared to die.
Yes, not a musketeer, but
I know.
good enough for government work.
He could be if he wanted to. He was that talented.
I disagree.
So, Ed and his longtime childhood friend Dustin Smith at the time, he's Dustin Hartland now, they had a company called Ingrained Products, and they made Raspberry Pi cases. In fact, they made their first product run at the Fab Lab, and then from that they managed to procure fundage and get themselves their own laser, and then it was from Ed's garage that it started. And then they quickly were growing. Like, their products were excellent. Dustin is an amazing engineer, and as is Ed. And they both created some very cool products that got traction in the community. And at that point, I had designed a case as well, while I was at the Fab Lab. And since I had already started getting experience with that, they were like, "Hey, do you want to work with us?" I'm like, "I do." So I go there and I just kind of become principal designer marketer guy. And I help them with their shipping computer, and I help them with designing products and taking photographs and running the machinery and just doing all sorts of things that a small company needs, which is everything.
Literally making awesome.
Yeah, literally making awesome.
I feel
and what
called
was
out,
exciting
though.
about it was a very small category of product, enclosures for the Raspberry Pi. But there was always this excitement when there was a new model. There was always these dips and flows, looking at how... That's when it was at C4 Labs that I really honed my marketing ideas.
Yeah.
Because that was always something that I was bad at. Because when you're trying to sell yourself as a product, that is almost impossible for the truly creative-minded. Because there are times when you have spent thousands of dollars worth of time on a $50 project.
Oh yeah, I get that. I totally.
And as
we
a creative
understand
person,
that.
yeah, as a creative person, you tend to go like, well, I got all this extra secondary value out of it. But where the rubber hits the road, you can't do that more than once or twice. You need to optimize things. So I started learning a lot about how can you control the value of something, because when you're selling a product, you're doing product design, there's so many factors to it, and there's so many schools of thought. Again, these are platitudes. There are whole academic categories just on selling, but for the sake of this discussion, three things to price. There is the intrinsic value, which would be the value a product has amongst its peers. So other Raspberry cases cost about this. There is the perceived value, which is what you have control over, which is either the materials you use, the marketing, the allure, the sophistication, the character, all these things that you can infuse into a project to make it seem more valuable, so you can charge more for it. And then there's cost, which is the actual literal cost of making it and all of its factors. If you can make the distance between perceived value and cost as far apart as possible, there's your profit. Intrinsic value is going to be in there somewhere. You're just going to hope that your product is appealing enough. So I started to use design, graphic design, like artistic graphic design merged with engineering to create products that had a high perceived value and a low cost of manufacture. So that was super important. And if you want to be an entrepreneurial maker making commodities, because that's what this was, and for those who aren't aware, a commodity is something made en masse, meant for mass consumption.
Yep.
Whereas specialized things are things that are often just, this is a thing that exists for a purpose.
Small production.
You're not going to get more than one. A car is even though it's mass produced, it's too expensive to be a commodity.
Yes. Right. It's a major
but plastic silverware is a commodity.
Yeah.
So even though there's an odd amount of science that goes into plastic silverware, to keep them from breaking under weight and when being forked, there's all sorts of cool stuff about injection molding. I could go.
We've talked about it.
That. Oh no, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Tad's specialty is injection
my
molding.
youthful exploratory nature never went away. Anytime I see something, like literally, I could pick up something.
That's why you're awesome.
Like I could pick up something like this lid for ice cream, and I'll look at this and I'm like, they have a plastic ring around a paper lid. I wonder at what step in the manufacturing process the paper was introduced. Was it during the molding? So it's an overmold onto it. That way they don't have to use adhesive to attach the paper to the plastic. And I'll sit there and I'm like, I wonder how they do it. And then I also look in here, and there's actually a thread in here that's not part of what normally engages on it. Was that because they had stuff oozing out when the ice cream melted? So then I'll go on a research tangent, and I'll start learning about the different things that the FDA requires for containers. And I'm like, I'll never use this knowledge.
Being a maker is both
it's a curse. It's a blessing and a curse, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, not everything can be made like this. A 1953 Keystone Executive.
That's all actual metal.
It's all metal. It weighs like 3.5 pounds. It's a brick. It's a 16 millimeter film camera that used these old Kodak cartridges.
Beautiful.
And this whole thing is just a beast. It's a brick.
Skookum.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Industry term would be skookum.
Yeah.
Skookum as frig.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, get it back in there.
There, we can now add the skookum subreddit into the description. Someone needs to remind me of this.
It has a lens turret on there,
Ah.
which is cool because you can pivot it over to your rangefinder so you can get your shot composed, and then you pivot it back to the film so you can do that. Or you can have two turrets on there for two different lenses. I don't know. I love these old things, and it still 100% functions. There's no electronics in it whatsoever except the photo cell for the light meter.
Amazing.
Anyways, sorry.
We do have to wrap this up pretty soon because Tad has to go, and if it goes to a 2-man podcast, it doesn't work all that well.
Well, you'll still be talking
fine,
4 hours from now, is what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Yes.
The two of you.
Tell me, how much time do you want to spend on the remainder?
10 more minutes. You think?
There you
Okay. All right.
So let's do 8 minutes, and then we'll play us out.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Working for C4 Labs, designed a lot of interesting products. I got very interested in using design to improve the value of products, as well as make them more producible. I designed a whole bunch of different products. They're probably my favorite. Is oh, really? Okay, then. Sorry about that. It's missing. Okay. What was a case called the Bel Air, and the Bel Air is a wooden case that looks like a hot rod car.
Mm-hmm.
And what was interesting about that is it sold really well. And that kind of threw me for a loop because I wasn't necessarily expecting there to be a great market for something like that.
The 57 Chevy Bel Air is a gorgeous car.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, and that's exactly what it was modeled after.
It's on your website. We can link your website.
My website just isn't coming up. I think the domain expired. Which is interesting.
Or all of our computers are being taxed too much, but
something like that. But here, let me do this. Let me make this super easy. I am going to take this and save as to my desktop.
Oh yeah, Wix is upset at you.
Yeah.
We'll get it sorted.
It's upset because I didn't continue to spend obscene amounts of money on a website that was getting almost no traffic.
InMotion hosting.
Yeah.
Or I don't know, but nonetheless, I mean, you're.
Here we go. Okay, perfect.
Your resume. Oh, there you go.
In fact, I just exported pages of my resume.
I was gonna say your resume of your portfolio of components. It is astounding. And
so that's
all laser cut.
This is a laser cut Raspberry Pi case. In fact, there's a functioning fan inside of the intake manifold on that, and it's designed for bent acrylic and for wood. These are some of the ad stuff I've done. This is just a Visa mounting plate for a case, but I made this advertisement that looks very fancy.
Beautiful.
This is one of my favorite ones, the Invasion. It was when we got acrylic benders. So a lot of these are a tale of the tape of when we gained a capability. We pushed into it and tried to come up with things. We standardized how things became installed. So I would be making these diagrams of assembly on how to put things together. This is another product I did where the case itself was designed by Dustin because we're all using flat acrylic. But here's the fascinating thing: acrylic is never the same thickness. No. It's always manufactured to different tolerances. So you want 3 millimeters, it's going to give you usually less. But it varies so much. And then when you start stacking things, that compounds that discrepancy. So we had difficulties with having screws that were long enough, and they would either grab the nut or they wouldn't. And if we made longer screws, they'd either stick out or they wouldn't. Yeah. So Dustin
damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah, Dustin designed a special colored nut that actually had a long shank that would go through 2 layers of material, which was more than enough to compensate for the variations in length. So this we call the C4 nut, and it was actually Dustin had designed this, and it corrected that. So we could use a screw that would wind up about in the middle of the collar, sometimes sometimes shorter, sometimes proud. That was another kind of maker-centric thing, and we had a huge amount manufactured. We'd have different colors, and then I work with different coloring systems coloring themes to make things look more interesting. A lot of Amazon things. We sold obscene amounts. Like we went from $40,000 dollars of sales in a year to almost $500,000.
Holy crap!
Just from the sheer ramp up of capabilities and design. This is a laser cut Millennium Falcon I designed in Autodesk Inventor. It is a puzzle that you put together. Let me zoom that in. Kind of crappy quality because it exported crappy JPEGs, but this is a puzzle you put together, and it was all flat packed. You can see in the background these sheets that have the diagrams on it. We only did it for maker fairs because clearly you can't sell Disney stuff publicly. So, but it was so interesting. Norm from Tested saw it and bought a couple, and then did an 3-hour assembly video on their Tested channel, which was fun. That's the Virtue. Okay, so get rid of that. Some of the stuff that I did at the Fab Lab. I did this sign for when we were at the fairs. A lot of the stuff I do
gorgeous.
is based on what do we have around. Like
Yeah.
a lot of the time it's just
What do we have
making
and how
whatever
can I
we
make
got
cool shit
work.
with it?
This is when I was practicing with wood inlays. I like the 30s retro look.
It really is. Oh, it's a good aesthetic.
Oh, it's a wonderful aesthetic, the Nouveau, or the Deco.
Art
See, this is a trophy for the pinball show that was held here. It's all acrylic and laser cut. It was one of those. Also, we had a budget and we needed something impressive, so it has like an Arduino Mini driving LEDs inside.
Wow.
And it's all laser cut, and I built all of them actually. In fact, before they were awarded, these tags didn't exist. When the awards were being presented, I had to run down to the shop and cut these tags to drop in so they could be presented. But I worked at C4 Labs for a while, and I started developing health problems that required me to kind of change my strategy a little bit. I worked for these are logo designs I did for contractors and stuff. Like this is for a woodworker.
Yep.
He made very, very fine furniture. So I designed this logo for him. This is for a hair shop. Somebody wanted a Sonics inspired Northwest Native thing. There's a crepe shop.
You and Thomas have so much in common. Just so
I know. It's why I was bummed that Thomas had to leave right as we were starting to get to some of the hardcore design stuff. But hey, Thomas, you should be watching this because you're probably needing to edit it for whatever reason that we've decided we're starting to pay to edit it as well.
Yeah.
Instead of just F it and throwing it up there.
I worked for a couple sign shops between here and there. The thing was here's the main point I do want to make. The last point I want to make is being creative as an occupation is very hard.
Yes.
Because you find passion in doing things, but a lot of the times when it's dealing with things that are kind of technical or they require kind of the right mental spark, it fights with that survivalist attitude of needing to earn money to live. So I was going through some serious depression, and because of it, because these are things I know how to do, but it was just not working for me. And I was thinking, like, I'm almost 37 now, and there are people who are half my age that are twice as competent as me in many effects. So I don't have a competitive edge against some of these people. But at the same time, I sat back and I thought, it's because of what I know that allows me to be a very dynamic person, a very interesting problem solver.
Yeah, that's too.
Pair that with a personality that actually is reasonably decent. That's important.
It
Don't
helps.
forget to be a good person.
He says with very little confidence.
Yeah.
I feel it though.
But finding value in yourself is super important because, you're not defined by what others value you at. It's all about you. This is the core point, however. Find something that you enjoy doing that nobody needs from you. Don't pin your income on it. Don't pin anything on it. Something that is only for pure joy. If you do it badly, you're satisfied with it. For me, it was learning the accordion. I've always played piano my life, but I never got good at it. However, I received an accordion in a barter, and I was like, oh yeah, I had one when I was a kid, never learned it. And then it got thrown away somehow. I wonder why. But when I got this one, I started to play and something resonated strong with me. It became my medication. whenever I'm feeling bad, when you do something creative and clever, you get those positivity chemicals, and you can carry that on to something else. So sometimes I'll be working, and then I'll start to be drained.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'll do is I'll swivel over to an instrument, and then I will pick it up, and I'll just play. I'm not recording anything. I have no recordings of my accordion playing, aside from what shows up on streams and podcasts now.
Yeah.
I have no personal recordings yet. But because when you record, you're critical of yourself.
This is true. I
This is
try
just for
not
you.
to. I try not to
just
watch the
for me.
podcast because I will be so critical of myself. I'm doing it live. I don't need to watch it again.
Exactly. So I wound up medicating myself with accordion playing, and to this day it still keeps me sane, because find the thing that you need that you can just do, and nobody expects you to be good. Nobody might even want you to be good at it. Chainsaw juggling really makes me feel good. But
okay,
when you
hobbies that make you feel
safe
good.
hobbies, yes. Because that was how I got, not over depression, because those things, that stays with you forever. But I manage things. I manage my ADD by structuring how I do work based on how I'm feeling, and I control how I'm feeling by playing the accordion or spending time with my wife or watching a movie or doing something. There is a way to strike a healthy balance in your life, and
it is an actual goal for us to get a psychologist on here to talk about mental health, because it's something that is not discussed enough in this industry.
No.
And we want to make sure that people know it, you know?
And what's worse is when it is discussed, it often carries a stigma. And the fact of the matter is, in this world of ours, especially in this social media world of ours, there is so much of a mirror being put on everybody.
In a socially
that
distanced world.
You tend to be so concerned about what other people think of you that it affects who you are.
Yep.
Well, and it's not. Humans weren't meant for
matter.
this.
It just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
No.
I worked for two sign shops. That was an interesting industry where I created a whole bunch of stuff. That's when I really honed my metalworking and CNC machine things. A lot of what I learned was being exposed to the tools, and then a natural learning and yearning. Metalworking and CNC milling especially is one of those things where knowing that you don't know something is a very powerful thing, because bits are expensive.
Yes.
So I sat down and I really tried to understand feeds and speeds and chip loads and carbides and coatings and high speeds and all that stuff, RPMs versus all these flute counts and tapers and profiles and pockets and blah, 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 blah. Before I even hit start on the machine. That way I'd be a little better equipped to understand them. Sign making was very cool. At the end of 2019, I had my ear infection come back, and I got put on 14 weeks of antibiotics, and that destroyed my immune system. And then 2020 happened, and we all know why having no immune system is a bad idea.
Yep.
So since
indoors
then, my body's in a bit of a self-destruct mode. My arthritis is crazy. My blood pressure is screwed up. I'm getting sick from everything, and that takes a toll on you mentally as well. So what's really important is to just sit back and know how to make yourself feel better. Interact with people socially. That's important. Because humans are social creatures, and it really does help. And know that, you're awesome, and you can make awesome every day.
We must.
Absolutely.
It's the only thing that keeps us sane at this point.
Yeah.
Jeez. Yes, it's true. And look, if you're struggling with mental health out there, don't hesitate to go talk to a professional. Okay, there's nothing wrong with it. It's totally normal. Let's leave on that. As always, call your loved ones. It's Valentine's Day, the day that this thing is going live. Not that should change whether or not you should call your loved ones, but you should do it, because honestly, life can change at the drop of a pin, and you'll never you'll never forgive yourself. And we want to make sure that we are building a community of people that love each other and understand that there's something to this more than whatever the business is and whatever we are as individuals. We are impacting the globe further than that. As always, this episode is supported by 3D Musketeers. If you are looking to make awesome, or you believe you make awesome, reach out to us, 3dmusketeers.com. My name's Grant. We got Tad. We got Brent. We had Thomas. He ain't here no more, but we miss him. He'll be back. As always, keep making awesome. Take care.
See ya.
Bye.